Hello, beautiful people. How are you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing amazing. Welcome back to another lesson of English with Ashish. And guys, today we are going to learn everything about mixed conditional sentences. This is going to be a step further, right? It's going to be little difficult to understand. It's actually different from normal conditional sentences that we learned in the last lesson. So you have to be more attentive. I'll make it very easy. Don't worry, right? There's a lot of practice exercises for you in this lesson. So watch it till the end. Participate in the practice exercises. I'll do the rest. All right, let's do it. So guys, a mixed conditional sentence is formed using two different tenses that show two different time, right? It's actually different from a normal conditional sentence, right? So to understand this one better, to understand mixed conditional sentences better, we have to understand normal conditional sentences, the four types of conditional sentences that we learned in the last lesson. I've explained everything about these four conditional sentences in detail. If you haven't watched the lesson, I'll give you the link in the description. Go watch that. But for now, let us just do a quick recap of these four conditional sentences. Type 0, type 1, type 2, and type 3. Type 0. If you heat ice, it melts. If you heat ice, it melts. If I feel angry, I meditate. So here we talk about something that is always true under a certain circumstance, under a certain condition. If this happens, that always happens. We talk about facts. We talk about general situations that fall true every single time a certain situation appears. If you heat ice, it melts. If I feel angry, I meditate. This is for me. This is not a scientific fact, but this is a fact for me. Might not be true for you, but it is 100% true for me. Type 1. If it rains, we will not go outside and play. If it rains, we will not go outside and play. Here we talk about a real possible situation that may occur in the future, that has a real chance of occurring in the future. If this happens, that will happen, right? So in the conditional sentence, in the conditional clause, we use a simple present tense, it rains, and in the result clause, we use a simple future sentence. We will not go outside and play. If this situation occurs, this will happen. Not 100% true. It may or may not happen, but it's a real situation and can happen. Type 2. Here we talk about hypothetical, unreal or unlikely to happen situations in the present or future. Examples. If she proposed to me, I would marry her. This is not happening. It is just an imagination, right? She's not proposing me. I'm not going to marry her. That is not happening. I know this, right? She loves somebody else. So this is a hypothetical, unreal situation. If she proposed to me, if this happens, this would happen. I would marry her. But none of these things are going to happen because it is absolutely opposite to the reality. One more example. If I were very rich, I would buy you an expensive car. If I were very rich. If the verb in the condition clause is be, we always use were, the subjunctive case, because it is a hypothetical situation. It is an unreal situation. So that's why we use were with any subject, be it he, she, it, or a plural subject. We always use were. If I were very rich, that is not the case. I'm not rich, right? And obviously I cannot buy you an expensive car. I don't have money. Okay, so this is just an imagination. This is not going to happen. In type 3 conditional sentences, we talk about something that would have happened in the past under a certain situation. Look at this example. If she had studied hard, she would have cleared the exam. Now, none of these things happened. Hypothetical cases. She did not study hard. She did not clear the exam. So I'm just thinking the opposite of what happened in reality. If this had happened, that would have happened, which is she would have cleared the exam. So these are the normal conditional sentences we have in English. Now the mixed conditional sentences are going to be little different. If you guys pay attention to all these conditional sentences, right? We're talking about the same time. Even though we are using different tenses, we are talking about the same time. Zero conditional, indefinite time. We are talking about indefinite time. If this happens, that happens. Type 1, we are talking about something that will happen in the future under a certain circumstance. We're talking about the future. We are referring to the future. Type 2 sentences, we focus on the future again. If this happened, that would happen. If she proposed to me, if this happens in the future, I would marry her again in the future or in near future. Again, we are talking about the same time. Okay. And in type 3 conditional sentences, we talk about the same time, which is past, right? If this had happened, that would have happened. Both the things happened in the past. But guys, mixed conditional sentences talk about different times. We use different tenses, different times to talk about a sentence that has a condition and a result relationship. Okay. So guys, there are 6 situations we can use mixed conditional sentences in. And all these situations are unreal and imaginary. So before we talk about them and we use them, I want you to do something. I want you to focus on the situation, on the context. Pay less attention to the grammar part and more to the context. Try to understand the situation we are going to use these mixed conditional sentences in, right? That's going to help you understand them and master them. All right. So we've got 6 situations. Number 1, a past condition, if clause in the past and the result clause in the present. Okay. This is the relation which is going to be. Number 2, a past condition, if clause in the past and the result in the future. Number 3, if clause in the present and the result in the past. Number 4, if clause again in the present, but the result this time is going to be in the future. Number 5, if clause in the future and the result is going to be in the present, right? And number 6, if clause in the future again and the result this time is going to be in the past. Okay, let's start with the first type. A past condition, if clause in the past and the result in the present tense. Now again, I don't want you to focus on the structure, on the grammar. Don't do that. Just understand the situation. Just try to understand the context. Let's look at the first example. If I had not listened to your advice that day, I would be dead right now. Is it happening? Is it a real situation? No, that's not a real situation. That's not what happened. The reality is, the real situation is, I am not dead right now because I listened to your advice that day. I am not dead right now because I listened to your advice that day. But now I'm going to imagine something opposite. If I had not listened to your advice that day, if that not had happened that day, I would be dead right now, right? So when I'm taking these examples, just try to imagine the situation. Just try to relate with it. When would you make such a sentence? When you want to reflect on the past and its result on the present. I'm not dead right now because I listened to your advice that day. But dude, if I hadn't listened to your advice that day, I would be dead right now. That is not true. I'm not dead right now because I listened to your advice that day. Got it? Let's look at the next example. If Monu hadn't left his job, he would not be having his own company today. What is the real situation? Monu is having his own company right now because he left his job in the past, right? Imagine yourself as Monu. You were working in a company some time back, right? And you decided to leave that company. And because of that, you're able to do something right now. You are in a certain position right now. You're having your own company. So if you hadn't done that, if you hadn't left your job back then, you wouldn't be having your company today. All right, now since we've understood the context, the situation, let's look at the structure. So the if clause is in past perfect tense. If I hadn't listened to your advice, had not listened, past perfect tense. And the result clause is subject plus would plus infinitive or subject plus would be plus ing form of a verb, right? Either way you can form the result clause. Okay, that's how we write such a sentence. Now, why is it a mixed conditional sentence? Because we are using 2 different conditional sentences to refer to 2 different times. If I hadn't listened to your advice that day, past perfect. Type 3 conditional sentence. I would be dead right now. Type two conditional sentences. Both these sentences are referring to different times. That's what mixed conditional sentences are used for. Okay, so that was case number one. Case number two, a past condition and a future result. The if clause in the past, again, the if clause is in the past, but the result is going to be in the future. Again, we'll take some examples, try to understand the situation, we'll try to understand the context, and then we'll look at the structure. We're not going to focus on the structure right now. And when I take examples, try to relate with them and try to be a part of them. Example number one. If she hadn't cheated me, if clause in the past, if she hadn't cheated me, we would be getting married next week, or we would get married next week. Okay, so the if clause is in the past and the result in the future. Okay, now is it a real situation? No, it's not a real situation. Then what is the reality? The reality is we are not getting married next week because she cheated me. Okay, this is the real situation. But I'm imagining something that is contrary, that is opposite to reality, which is if she hadn't cheated me, if she hadn't done this, we would be getting married next week, or we would get married next week. Getting the point? So we are showing a result or an effect in future of a past condition. Let's look at the next example. If Max had accepted my offer and joined my startup, if Max had done something, what is that? Accepted my offer and joined my startup, we would be doing a world tour next week together. The if clause in the past and the result in the future. Now, is it what's happening? No. The reality is we will be going on a world tour without Max next week because he did not accept my offer and join my startup that day, right? That is the reality. But let's imagine something opposite. If he had accepted my offer and joined my startup that day, we would be doing a world tour next week together. That is something I'm imagining. Now focus on the structure. The if clause is in the past and the result of the if clause, the condition, is in the future. So this is showing a relation of a past condition with a future outcome, with a future result. And guys, we are using a future time marker to make it clear that the result clause is referring to the future time. So in the first example, we used next week, referring to the future time. In the second example also, we also used next week, right? Referring to the future time. We can say next week, next month, next year, tomorrow, right? We use future time marker to make it clear that this particular clause, the result clause, is referring to the future time. If you don't do it, it's all right. If you do it, that's better because that's going to make the meaning of the clause clear that it is in the future. Now, we have understood these two mixed conditional sentences. Let us do some practice together, right? So on your screen, you have some conditions, right? If clauses. What you have to do is pause the video and complete the sentence. Write the result clause. The if clause is in past, so you can either use a future result or a present result. Pause the video and do it. Alright guys, hope you've done it. Now let us do it together. Example number one, if we had not found Ashish, how would it affect your present or past? Let's figure out. So we can say if we hadn't found Ashish, our lives would be so boring. You can use some modal auxiliary verbs too to show different possibilities of the outcome. Our lives could be so boring. Our lives may or might be so boring. Okay, that's one way to say that. Can we change it? Yes, we can. Let's take a new result. If we hadn't found Ashish, we would be going to a coaching center to learn English. That's not going to happen now because I'm there. If you hadn't done this, you would be doing this in the future. Okay, next example. If you had taken him to the hospital on time. Okay, what can we say? If you had done this, if you had taken him to the hospital on time, he would not be dead. The present result, he would not be dead. He would not be getting married next week, right? The future result, this wouldn't be happening in the future if you hadn't taken him to the hospital on time. I hope you're getting it. Next example. If your parents hadn't had sex that night. Okay, if your parents hadn't had sex, had, the second had is an action verb, past participle of have. If your parents hadn't done sex or had sex that night, how does it affect our present or future? We can say, you wouldn't be here on this planet. If your parents hadn't had sex that night, you would not be here on this planet, which is actually true. We wouldn't be. We can also say you wouldn't be having your own kids. If your parents hadn't had sex that night, you wouldn't be having your own kids. Okay, great. Next example. If I had been born in an English speaking country, okay, how does the result affect the present or the future? We can say, I would not be learning it today. I would not be learning English today. Something wouldn't be happening in the present, okay? The present result. Or I would not have to learn it today. Again, we have used a modal auxiliary verb, have to, okay? So we're done with situation number 1 and 2. Now let us move to situation number 3. If clause in the present and the result in the past. If you were a good friend, we would not have left you. Now, do not get confused with the simple past tense. It is a simple past tense, but it's referring to the present time. If you were a good friend, you were not a good friend. Simple present, you're not a good friend. If you were a good friend, we wouldn't have left you. Something in the past wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have left you. Now, when would you say that? In what situation would you say this? We left you in the past because you are not a good friend. Next example. If she had enough money, she would have continued college. If she had enough money, she doesn't have enough money. She would have continued college. That didn't happen in the past because she does not have enough money. So we're talking about a condition in the present that affected a result in the past, that has a relation with an outcome in the past. Because she doesn't have money, she did not continue college. All right. So just to imagine the opposite thing, we're making the sentence, if she had enough money, she would have continued college. Let me show you more examples. If my sister weren't short, they would have accepted her. If my sister weren't short, she is actually short. They would have accepted her, they rejected her, right? If I were a good speaker, which is not the case, I'm not a good speaker, I would have been invited to many forums to give speeches, which didn't happen. I did not get invited to many forums to give speeches. That didn't happen. But if I were a good speaker, that would have happened. I would have been invited to many forums to give speeches, right? So in the if clause, we have a simple past tense, but do not get confused with the tense. It is simple past tense, but it refers to the present time, okay? And in the result clause, we have the subject plus would have plus past participle, right? We can also use modal auxiliary verbs like could, may, might, right? If you want to do it, you can do that. Now, if you pay attention to the structure, we are using two different types of conditionals. The if clause is using a second conditional sentence, and the result clause is using a third conditional sentence. And both these clauses are referring to different times, right? That is something that doesn't happen in normal conditional sentences. Okay, let's move to the fourth type, a present condition but having a future result. So guys, here the if clause is going to be the same, is going to talk about the present time, but the result clause is going to talk about the future time. Okay, let's look at some examples. Example number 1. If I were not busy, I would definitely be coming to your party tomorrow, or I would come to your party tomorrow if I were not busy. But is it true? No, it's not true. The real situation is I will not be coming to your party tomorrow because I am busy. But if I were not busy, which I'm busy, I would be coming to your party tomorrow, or I would come to your party tomorrow, which is not happening. I will not be coming to your party tomorrow. Getting the point? Try to relate with the example. Just try to imagine yourself in the example. You saying something like this to somebody, right? Because you're busy, you're saying this to somebody. All right? Let's take one more example. If Linda were passionate about her work, the company won't fire her or would not be firing her. Okay. Is Linda passionate about her work? No, she's not passionate about her work, and the company will be firing her. This is happening. So the real situation is Linda is not passionate about her work, and the company is firing her because of that, right? But if Linda were passionate about her work, the company won't be firing her or won't fire her. Are you guys getting the context, the situation? That's what's important here, guys, right? If you just focus on the grammar part, you'll miss the whole point. You'll miss the context, you'll miss the situation, and you'll not be able to use these mixed conditionals. So I want you to focus on the situation, on the context, right? And obviously, we'll look at the structure as well. Okay, let's take one more example. If I did not care about you, I would not be coming to see you tomorrow. Now, when will you say that to somebody? When you do care about somebody and you are going to meet somebody in the future, right? But if somebody doesn't agree with this, you'll say, if I didn't care about you, which I do care about you, I would not be coming to see you tomorrow, which I am going to see you tomorrow. It's happening in the future. So look at the structure. The if clause is using a simple past time, but again, it's referring to the present time. Simple past tense referring to the present time. Amazing. Okay. And the result clause is using the subject plus would plus an infinitive, a base form of a verb, or the subject plus would be plus ing form of a verb. You can use either structure in the result clause, right? Now let us do some practice together. On your screen are some conditions, right? Finish the sentence. Pause the video, do it. All right, guys, I hope you've done it. I hope you've done it correctly. Let's do it together now. If she spoke English, okay, simple past tense, but it's referring to the present time. If she spoke English, she does not speak English. That is the reality. How would it affect your past or future? Let's figure out together. If she spoke English, she would have cleared the exam in the past. Something would have happened in the past if this was the case in the present. We can use modal auxiliary verbs too. She could have cleared the exam. She might have cleared the exam if she spoke English, which is not the case. She does not speak English, right? And because of which, she did not clear the exam. Now let's have a future result. If she spoke English, she would live in America. She would live in America if she spoke English. But that is not the case. She will not be living in America because she does not speak English. Got it? Next example. If I were your father, which is not the case, I'm not your father, condition, what would have happened or what would happen? I would have bought a Mercedes for you. If I were your father, present condition, past result, I would have bought a Mercedes for you. Okay. Now let's take a future outcome, a future result. If I were your father, I would take care of you. But I'm not your father and I will not take care of you. Got it? So that's how we use these two situations where we have a present condition, a condition referring to a present time, but the result is going to be either in the past or in the future. Let us move to the next situation, situation number 5, where the if clause refers to the future time and the result clause refers to the past time. Let's see some examples. If I were not going to start my own business, I would have accepted your offer. But the reality is, I did not accept your job offer because I am going to start my own business, right? So let's suppose in the past you offered me a job, right? And I knew I'm not a job guy and I want to do something on my own and I want to have my own business in the future. So because of something in the future, I said no to something. Okay, let's take one more example. If Max did not have an operation next week, we wouldn't have taken off from our job and come here. If Max did not have an operation next week, simple past tense referring to the future time. Next week is a future time marker, right? So if this was not happening in the future, we wouldn't have done something in the past. We wouldn't have taken leaves from our jobs and come here. But the reality is Max does have an operation next week, and because of which we took off from the work and came here. So here a future condition has a relation with a past result. Look at the structure. The if clause is using a simple past tense but referring to the future time. And how do we know? We use future time marker like tomorrow, next week, next month, etc. to make it clear. And the result clause uses the subject plus would plus have plus past participle. And guys, the result clause refers to the past time. Okay? So in the if clause, we're using type 2 conditional sentence, and in the result clause, we're using a type 3 conditional sentence. Let's look at the next situation. Last situation, same if clause in the future, but the result is not going to be in the past now, it's going to be in the present. Let's take some examples. If my friends weren't coming to my party next week, I would be angry at them. If my friends were not coming to my party, what is it happening? No, they are coming to my party next week. Am I angry at them? No, I am not angry at them. The reality is, I am not angry at my friends as because they will be coming to my party next week. They are coming to my party next week. So the if clause is talking about the future time, right? And the result clause is referring to the present time. Let me show you one more example. If he were not getting married this Sunday, if he were not getting married this Sunday, which is not the case, he is getting married this Sunday, right? This is happening in the future. We would not be having a party right now. If this was not happening in the future, we wouldn't be doing something right now in the present. If he were not getting married this Sunday, we would not be having a party right now. But we are having a party right now because he is getting married this Sunday. This is the reality. Now guys, let us have a practice set of situation number 5 and 6. On your screen are the conditions. Finish them using result clauses. Alright, hope you've done it. Now let us do it together. If you weren't fighting this week, which you are doing, something is happening in the future. How would it affect the past or the present? She would have had intercourse with you. I don't want to use the S word, so I'm using a formal word, intercourse. She would have had intercourse with you. Had, guys, is the past participle of the verb have, to do. She would have done intercourse with you in the past, okay? A present result, she would have intercourse with you right now. If you weren't fighting this week, if this was not happening in the future, she would do something right now. What would she do? She would have intercourse right now. Next example, if he weren't giving an exam tomorrow, which he is going to give an exam tomorrow. Something in the future is happening, which is he will give an exam tomorrow. What would happen? Past, he would have joined us yesterday. He would have joined us yesterday. Something in the past would have happened. That didn't happen. He did not join us because he is giving an exam tomorrow. What's in the present? He would be playing with us right now. If he weren't giving an exam tomorrow, if this was not happening in the future, something would happen or would be happening right now in the present. What is that? He would be playing with us right now. So that's how we make mixed conditional sentences, guys. I hope everything is clear. Now you've understood how to use mixed conditional sentences. But again, guys, if you really want to use them in your spoken English or written English, you have to practice. You have to write a lot of sentences, speak a lot of sentences using mixed conditional sentences. If you just do that, you would be able to master mixed conditional sentences. So hope you liked this lesson. If you did, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do it. And guys, please share it with people that can be benefited out of this lesson. There's a lot of people that do not know what mixed conditional sentences are. Make sure you share this lesson with them. Alright, if you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys very soon. Till then, keep learning, have fun. You know I love you.